There it is. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live again on a Thursday. This is the Del Valley Sports Pod. This is
Yes.
episode number 61. I'm your boy CB Colin Berger alongside Dan Glassstetter III, a.k.a. DG3. You know him and love him. Dan, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to be here to record the Chan-Ho Park episode.
Oh, I love that pull.
Woo.
I love it. I was
Chan-Ho Park.
I was trying to think of a recent Eagle, and I couldn't, so I'm glad you had one lined up. Good call.
He played for the Phillies for 1 year. Do you remember the year? Pop quiz.
Oh yeah, it was the World Series.
Which one?
08.
Oh, 09. Very impressive, though. I'm still very impressed. The 09 Yankees World Series year.
For some reason, I thought I saw him on that whole 40-man roster T-shirt that they used to make back in the day.
Yeah.
Where it was on the 08 team, but I missed it by a year. Although that would make sense because I was at a different high school in 09 than I was in 08, and I saw it at the high school from 09. So that's bad work by me. But regardless, love the Chan-Ho Park poll.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to be back to talk and discuss about another big win. We are going to the conference championship, and I would say we'll talk about it. We have a couple guys to thank for that. A couple guys that had some pretty outstanding games this past weekend in what was a wild, slippery, slick. What was the Hurts quote at the end of the game? Rain, sleet, or snow, the Eagles will be ready to go. A lot of people saying that he was on some of that good stuff.
Oh, he was Jalen Perk at that point.
Crushing toward it all, you think?
Jalen Perks. I've never seen that man smile. Almost drops an F-bomb. He was giddy as could be.
He was.
And that was funny, but also a little eerie knowing that his knee was hurting that bad that he had to get that much painkiller.
Yeah.
Obviously, Aaron Rodgers vibes from a couple years back where he's like, my knee. He's talking to Michelle Tafoya or whoever it was. Yeah. Jalen Perks was out in full force. But what a win. I mean, what a game. I just got done rewatching it, and I had as much anxiety tonight rewatching the game as I did on Sunday.
Yeah.
All the way through. If we want to talk about it from 30,000 feet, first half was very even, back and forth. Then the second half, the Eagles start to impose their will in the snow, and then all of a sudden, they're going to lose. So where do you want to start? I will leave it up to you because there's a lot of different directions we can go here.
Just side comment, it was one of those weird games, kind of reminiscent of, I believe it was a Thursday Steelers-Browns game where the first half, the snow was coming down a little bit, but the field was still pretty green for the most part. Cut to the second half. It was funny. When I watched the replay, it immediately, when it finished, went back to the start of the game again. And it was wild to see how freaking white and filled with snow the field was compared to the start of the game. It was a tale of two halves as far as the field conditions. Though it was obviously still pretty slippery in the first half. The snow was really landing. Man, there's some really beautiful clips that came out of this game because of that snow, though. Namely the Saquon Barkley run. I think that's where to start. I think this was a good game for the Del Valley Sports Pod. We made some pretty good predictions in this game, I got to say.
I would like to think so, from the fact that the snow definitely played a factor. Matt Stafford looked good, but less good in the second half. The two fumbles were paramount in the Eagles winning this game, even though they didn't completely capitalize on both of them. And Goddard went off again.
Yeah.
Where else? Nolan Smith had another good game. Jalen Carter's obviously a savage.
Yeah.
Can't stop that guy.
He was unbelievable.
He finally got a holding call. So
I was going to say, he finally got a holding call. It also didn't feel kind of special to see him do it in the playoffs against the Rams, as he kind of feels like that next Aaron Donald. You know, you think of the last, I know Aaron Donald he only probably played like 12 years, maybe a little bit more than that. But it was kind of, I remember watching the middle of that game and going, I know Rams fans are watching this right now and thinking, this guy reminds me of Aaron Donald in terms of his size, strength, and athleticism. And he showed all of it. That punch out was sick, dude. And then huge shout out to Rodgers in the snow, in the slick weather, clean pickup. I think Rodgers has returned, I don't, maybe he still does, but he's returned kicks at times at least this year for us. So he must have some pretty good hands. But that punch out was sick and such a huge momentum boost for us. But he was awesome. And then one last Jalen Carter comment. We talk a lot about Jalen Carter and how over his first couple years, I think a big criticism of him, and rightfully so, is that he's been at times a little bit like one of the more emotionally immature guys. When he gets heated in the moment, it'll be a personal foul or just, I don't want to say he checks out of plays, but you can see that at times over the last couple of years, frustration or emotions kind of take over and he stops using his brain at times. One thing, it's a very small thing, but I just was so impressed by it. At the very, very end of the game, in that last Rams push to take the lead and essentially win the game, it was 3rd and 2. He has maybe his most dominant rush of the game. Sacks Matt Stafford. He didn't stand a chance. It was an unbelievable rush. Sacks Matt Stafford, and almost immediately after he gets that sack, did you see what he did?
I'm pretty sure he just ran right back to the defensive huddle.
Ran back and immediately is calling the defense to reset back up to get back on the line. I know that that's a little thing and maybe an obvious, but in that moment, I can't imagine how massive that would feel. You just dominated, you sacked the quarterback. You always yell at the guys when they do a celebration in times like that because it's like, get back to the line. But you can understand how it's easy to get caught in the moment. For him to make that big play, gave a little bit of a tap to the guys around him, and then immediately he's calling for the defense back. Just, I love that. Great leadership, great maturity there. And that's such a little thing, but I think that goes a really long way. I love to see that out of Carter. I think he is becoming more of a leader on this defense.
Yeah, and it's hard to comprehend that he is only a second-year player. Yeah. I mean, he feels like he's been in the league for 4 years, and you have to remind yourself that this guy is only in his second year, and he is this dominant. And I think Aaron Donald is a completely accurate comparison because when is the last time, TJ Watt maybe comes to mind where it's at least on the defensive line. When is the last time a guy came in and within his first 2 years has risen to top 5 of defensive linemen in the NFL? I think it's fair to put Jalen Carter in that conversation. He might not be in the top 5, but he's probably within the top 10 if you go defensive lineman across the board. He is that dominant at his position, and he changes games on his own. The amount of pressures he was able to get on the quarterback, they got 5 sacks. Was it just that one for him? I think it was. I can't remember exactly.
Pulled up here.
But he's taking double teams. He's
allowing. He had two.
He had two.
Mm-hmm.
He's allowing. Well, I guess was the other one the punch out? Was that?
No, that was a run play. That was a Kyron Williams run play. Yeah, it was a Kyron Williams run, and he was kind of from the side / chasing him, and that was a punch out for the running back there against the running back there.
But, you see it on so many plays where he's beating double teams, his ability to swim move, his ability to drop and then stunt around other guys. He is the reason I think this defense is as successful as it is. One thing that I noticed from the game, I don't know if you took notice of this, but there was a lot of Jekyll and Hyde when it came to a lot of players where we saw really good plays, but then also some not so good plays. The people that come to mind are Slay and Isaiah Rodgers. Both of them had amazing coverages and pass breakups, but then also got beat at times where it looked like it was really going to kill the Eagles. Notably, Slay getting beat on the touchdown to Parkinson and giving up the long play to Nakua with about 2 minutes left down the sideline.
Yeah, it's a tough play in the snow and everything.
Yeah. And it's Puka Nakua and Sam Bradford.
Yeah. Sam
but
Bradford
he
again.
Also had,
you went Sammy Sleeves. Back-to-back weeks, you go Sammy Sleeves on.
Did I do that again?
Yeah.
Why do I keep doing that?
Colin, #1 Sam Bradford fan.
I don't know why I keep doing that.
Listen, I got to say, I agree with you on Rodgers, though. At the end of the day, I thought, and we'll get to Rodgers, I thought Rodgers had actually like a really good game. I thought Slay had an unreal game. I thought Slay had potentially, and he played the whole game. Almost every game you see him come out with like an injury for a little bit. But I thought he was magnificent. Fountain of youth type good. I think we have him at 3. And last game, he had one of the best interceptions that we've seen all year, the way he tracked down the deep ball. I forget who the receiver was on that play. Last game before the Rams, he had an unbelievable pick. He's playing at such a high level right now. I think he had 3 pass deflections in this game. I thought he was unbelievable. And that's without even considering how difficult it is to play in that kind of weather where you have no footing. You watch this game, and most of the time you watch NFL and you're like, yeah, these guys are this could never be or could never have been me. But it's funny when you watch these snow games and when receivers and such take routes and they do 10 quick choppy steps, it makes you feel like, yeah, that is like, they just look like regular humans out there. You know, it's amazing how the weather and the snow is a little bit of like an equalizer in that sense. I can't imagine playing cornerback in that kind of weather, in those kind of conditions. And I thought he was so good. I thought, and we needed him to be. And then with Rodgers, we're talking about, just compare this secondary to last year. Like, we're talking about our CB3. We're talking about a backup cornerback. For a backup cornerback, I know Robinson had the one deep ball on him. That was an inch away from being a pick. Like,
it was.
The coverage was phenomenal. Great catch. I give the receiver credit there. That's an unbelievable catch. I think about the fact that he's the backup quarterback, and I think about last year how the starters, we couldn't find a starter that could play cornerback at that level, and now we have our third cornerback playing at that high of a level.
Yeah, I just reminding me of last year's defense gives me nightmares and how bad they were at the end of the season. And for them to make this turnaround in 1 year, you got to thank Howie Roseman. You got to thank Vic Fangio. They're the reason they've gotten this far. Them and obviously Saquon Barkley. It's just, I'm just thankful. I am thankful to be able to watch a defense that can make a stop when it matters. Sans the last 2 minutes. We can talk about that later. Do you want to talk about Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts? Should we move to the offense?
I got a couple more defense things. One, probably like one of my favorite drives of the game was the Zach Bond drive. It was in the fourth quarter, close game, and he's done this. He's done this several games now, a couple games in a row now, where it's just like, I think 2 games ago it was he almost intercepted the ball. And then the next play, what does he do? He intercepts the ball. This drive that I'm referring to, he had an awesome play where he tackled the running back in the backfield, probably a loss of at least 3, maybe 4 yards. Just shot the gap. Like, he saw the play, shot the gap, shot out of a cannon, and takes down Williams. And then they end up the next play getting a 3rd and long first down. And then they try to do like a little bit of I forget if it was a bubble screen or a pass out to the running back or receiver. He jumps it and deflects the pass, read it extremely well. And then a play or 2 plays later, the ball goes on the ground, and who's there to pick it up? Who but Zach Bond, who was there to pick it up because he was pass rushing, and he is really good at pass rushing. Like, he seems like such a high IQ player. When he's not a guy that just puts his head down and aimlessly tries to get to the quarterback. On this particular play, he was driving. He was kind of getting by his man, but then he brings his head up and sees that Stafford is starting to kind of step up into the pocket and is even maybe looking to throw the ball. So he kind of stops his rush and kind of gets in position to either tackle or deflect. Then I forget who it was, probably Carter, who knows. Someone then kind of strips the ball, and he is in perfect position, body facing the quarterback to just jump on that thing. he does this every once in a while where he just has a drive and he just takes over, and it's a big play against the run, it's a pass rush, or it's pass coverage. It's like every aspect of the game he can be impactful at. And we just cannot say enough about Zach Bond.
Yeah, he stepped up huge in the absence of Nakobe Dean. I thought Oren Burks had a pretty good game. He had a pass deflection on the drive following the one you were just speaking of, and that strip sack was Nolan Smith. Had another great game. Nolan Smith had the strip sack, and Bond was there to pick it up. Yeah, in the absence of Nakobe Dean, again, there were a couple plays where I thought Burks was a little bit out of position, but he's also not used to being in coverage very much. It was his first game full-time at linebacker. I don't think it was a detriment to the Eagles to have him out there by any means. But Bond is continually shows up every game. I could not agree more. One thing defensively that I took notice to, and this was in the first half, mostly because I was watching the All 22. Every time that they were in the Rams, were in short yardage in obvious run downs. It was a 3rd and 1 and a 3rd and 2. When we're lined up, it's almost like goal line formation. When we're lined up in that formation, the defensive line shows how much better they are as a whole unit against the opponent's offensive line. The two plays I'm speaking of was a 3rd and 2. The Rams are driving down to score a touchdown. 3rd and 2 at the 11. Again, I think there were 17 guys in the box. And Jordan Davis took on a double team. Jalen Carter is taking on 2 other blockers, which allowed C.J. Gardner-Johnson to fire in the hole, tackle Kyron Williams for a loss, keeping them to a field goal. The very next drive, the same thing happened. Where, again, there were like 9 or 10 guys in the box. And forgive me, maybe it wasn't the next. It was. Yeah, it was the next drive. 3rd and 1 at the Rams 44, which resulted in a punt. Same thing. I mean, you have like 6, 7 offensive linemen, 7 defensive linemen. Josh Sweat pulls a stunt, is able to stop Kyron Williams again up the middle. It's just that there was 2 plays on 2 consecutive drives where it looked like goal line formation, and the Eagles imposed their will on the defensive line. It was beautiful to see. I think it just goes to show how talented this team is from 1 to 53.
Yeah, see, that's a good pull. I mean, I'm glad you said that. CJ had a couple of big plays in this game. And I feel like you kind of need him more. He's been doing it most of the year, but you kind of need him more in those run stop plays because Burks is just not Nakobe Dean. We've seen a lot of really good linebacker play this year from Dean and Bond where they're so good at picking up the play and then aggressively shooting the gap, which, doesn't allow the blockers to get to their blocks in time. And if you can disrupt at the line of scrimmage or certainly in the backfield, the whole play can so quickly go awry. CJ, man, he's played physical all year, and we've said before, sometimes a little bit suspect in the pass defense, but he plays very physical. He's not afraid to go up and give anyone a shot. As far as Burks goes, the deflection was a huge play. Really, really big play. Good awareness there. When I watched the film, this guy he just doesn't have the same. It makes you miss Dean because he just doesn't have the same instincts. With Bond and with Dean, there were so many plays where you're like that. It felt like that guy knew what the play was. Whether it's picking up a running back, a tight end who trickles out. I think Dean this year got so good at picking up like a screenplay, like a delayed screenplay, where at first it looks like a pass down the field, and then you have the guys spill out. And the Rams kind of do that a lot. They'll do it with play action. They'll also just do like those screenplays. And Burks reminded me a lot of like the linebacker play we saw last year, where it's all reactive, never, very rarely like proactive. Like I'm going to watch this guy, and then when he spills out, I'm going to shoot to it. So that it is what it is. I mean, this is what happens when it's not like I mean, I don't know if Nakobe Dean was a Pro Bowler this year, but he felt like he was playing at that kind of a level, in my opinion. You're not going to get the same production out of a guy that's 7-8 year journeyman special teams guy. You're just not going to. So, everyone, he has to step it up, but everyone else has to step it up around him, and they did that.
Yeah. Like I said a little bit earlier, I don't think he was detrimental to the team. He just wasn't anticipatory as Nakobe Dean was. If I remember correctly, there was a quick out route to Cooper Kupp, and I think they were targeting Burks and Rodgers, who were on the same side of the field, and neither of those guys were in the position they could be. It's only one play. It's a very small sample size, but there were a few plays where they were out of position, but I don't think ultimately it killed them. Obviously, they held the Rams to, 15 points through the first 4 quarters. And then all of a sudden things kind of changed in the fourth quarter. Before we go to the offense, do you want to talk about those 2 drives? Because sorry, go ahead.
And no Trotter at all. We were curious to see if Trotter would be out there on the defense, at least for plays, but I don't think he was out there for a single play on the defense. I don't remember seeing him.
I don't remember seeing his number at all. Now that you say that, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So I know earlier in the week, Vic was kind of hinting at putting him out there, or potentially having him out there for a drive or 2 or what have you, but I didn't see Trotter out there, so it'll be interesting to see if they're pleased with Burks' film or not. I guess basically see if Trotter gets out there, but yeah, those last 2 drives at the end, that's just like classic football, isn't it? It's just classic football, and I feel like I was like, where'd the snow go? Keep snowing! Come back! Because it probably was still snowing, but it looked like the field itself was very snowy, but it felt like it had stopped a little bit with the wind and the stuff falling from the sky. And I don't know what to say. I mean, the defense looked exhausted. I was going to say it earlier when we were talking about Carter. The guy plays basically every single down. I just don't remember a play where he came off the field. And the defense was just exhausted. And I would say it showed.
Yeah, what it reminded me was a Jim Schwartz defense of like 2017, 2018, where they're playing sticks and they're just getting the underneath routes for 8, 9, 10 yards because they're playing prevent defense. They're like, all right, we have a 2 touchdown lead. Let's just not give up the home run right now. But to your point, they were tired. The drive before the Rams went on that 70-yard, 2-minute touchdown drive was the one play Saquon Barkley 80-yard run. So they were only off the field for a minute, not even. Yeah. So
we don't have much of a rotation in that defensive line. We just don't. They're not playing Huff. Huff is just not playing because I think he is healthy at this point. He's just not playing.
Not at all.
Seldom they'll put in Hunt. Seldom times. He does get in a little bit. But in those big moments, I think that they try to not have him in. And they were talking about it on the broadcast. I mean, they went to that hurry-up offense, which, especially with a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford, maybe they were right on the broadcast that they should have gone to that offense sooner in the game because we just couldn't keep up with the pace that they were making us play at that point in time. We just could not.
Yeah, and I think teams are learning to scheme around Jordan Davis because there were times in the first half where it was an obvious passing down. Jordan Davis wasn't on the field, and I think they audibled to a run knowing that. And Kyron Williams picked up, 7 to 8, 9 yards on a few of those plays. And on the same token, on those last 2 drives, there was one play in specific when Jordan Davis was on the field, and Collinsworth just said the Eagles could get no pass rush there. And I'm like, well, I mean, look, number 90's in the game. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Davis is a great run stuffer, but if he has to come in on a passing down, it's a major detriment to the Eagles.
Yeah, but I will say, I don't know. Yeah, I think that the expectation when we got Davis is that he could be an impact player on the pass rush as well, and that's part of the reason why he takes a lot of heat, is because that kind of was part of the expectation. A lot of teams have a guy like that, a guy or two that their entire job. It used to be every single team had one dude that was like 400 pounds, and their job was literally just to eat linemen, just to be a barrier. And guys just aren't built the same. Now the guys that are 400 pounds can still actually run, which is wild. But at the end of the day, if Jordan Davis just evolves into being a really good run stopper, like I think I can be okay with that. Obviously, you would hope that he could be more than that, but if he's at least excellent in the run stopping side of the game, I can be okay with that. It's just where like even just one guy going Huff not working out and BG going down. This is the impact of that. It's not just a lack of a good player. It's added stress and added fatigue on all of the other players.
It's the way that it is. It's the way that the Eagles team as a whole is constructed. I mean, very run heavy, good at stopping the run. They are good in pass rush. And we'll get to this. Watching this game made me a little bit more nervous than I was before rewatching the film, as it pertains to next week.
Yeah, I'm curious on your thoughts of the weather. Was the weather something that kind of like saved the Eagles' butts in some ways, or was it more of an equalizer and kind of put the teams on a level playing field, do you think? I could go either way with this.
I really think it helped the Eagles.
You think so?
I seriously do. Because the Eagles are so run heavy. Jalen Hurts didn't have a great game, but he didn't have a bad game. His ability to run the ball and scramble from the pocket helped him, but I don't think he trusted his throws and his arms, given the conditions. And the fact that Matt Stafford, he missed a couple of wide open receivers, and I think it was due to the wind and the snow.
He doesn't do that very often, yeah.
No. If this game was in a dome, I think the Rams win, to be honest with you. And it's because the way that the defense and the offense are built both. I mean, the offensive line, obviously Saquon had two runs for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Honestly, though, other than that, he only carried the ball. I have the numbers here. He had 20, other than those two, he had 24 carries for 65 yards, 2.7 a carry. Not bad, but it's not that consistent, 4 or 5 yards a pop we were used to. They could still rely on the run. And again, Jalen Hurts ran the ball very well. But if Matt Stafford had the ability to find these speedy wide receivers on a clear playing field, no wind, I think this game is a completely different game than the one that we watched.
Yeah, I think their timing was probably off. Apart from the quarterback accuracy, probably part of the accuracy problems were that it was really hard to time up routes like you normally would, because guys aren't making clean cuts or anything. They're freaking tiptoeing their way through the route. So it did make the pass game difficult in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I mean, Hurts obviously had a really he did not pass the ball well in this game. So I guess the argument is if the weather was better, would Hurts have been better? But I don't know that a lot of Eagles fans are that confident in that. I think that there's more confidence in Stafford would definitely be better, and hopefully Hurts would be, but I think you have more trust in Stafford being great in those big moments.
I think the margin by which the weather hurt Stafford was much greater than the margin by which it hurt Hurts in the passing game.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree on that. Now, in watching the film, Jalen Hurts, this is my interpretation of what I watched. Jalen Hurts held the ball a little bit too long on a few pass plays. The Rams also played very good coverage. Now, they have a decent secondary. I mean, they haven't had the best defense all year, but I felt like they were very good at covering the Eagles when it was four wide. Goddard got wide open on a few plays, and Hurts found him. But, I mean, the one play that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is the dime that he threw to A.J. Brown on the sideline, and Brown dropped it.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been on the 2-yard line, and Brown dropped it. I also don't think that the route scheming just didn't seem creative to me. It was just like
I agree.
cuts. Now, again, Jalen Hurts was not getting the ball out of his hands. I timed 2 of his sacks. He was holding the ball for more than 3.5 seconds. If your first or second read isn't there, especially in the snow, when you're not going to be able to scramble at the end of the game, that definitely hurt Jalen Hurts because he wasn't able to scramble out of the pocket with his knee injury. You just need to chuck the ball away. And I don't know what it was. He wasn't throwing it out of bounds. He was trying to hold the ball too long, wait for someone to get open, but that's not going to happen when the snow is completely covered. The field is completely covered in snow. Excuse me.
Here's the problem though, Colin. The sacks that he took in certain situations, they have to be plays where, listen, you cannot take a sack here. You cannot take a sack here. And that's unacceptable. Now, if you want to put some of the blame on the coach for either not saying that or not drawing up a play where he has a clear throwaway outlet, listen, he took a sack at least twice when they were in field goal range or right on the fringe of it, one being the end of the first half, and then there was another time as well, I can't remember the exact timestamp on it, where if he doesn't, at least the one at the half, honestly, I think both of them, if he doesn't take a sack there, they can attempt a field goal. You can't take a 10-yard sack at the 30-yard line. And then the safety is just horrible, Colin. It's just horrible. Anytime you're near your own end zone, you have to think, I cannot get tackled in my own end zone. There's no excuse for that. And I saw a wide open Goddard over the middle of the field. And again, whether or not he wanted to throw it to him, whether it was, you can throw it away to him, certainly there. And you have to. You cannot take a safety. They snapped that ball, I think, on the other side of the 5-yard line even. I want to say they snapped that ball on like the 6 or 7-yard line. So it wasn't even like a ball where he snapped it at the 1 or 2 because the play previously, Barkley had a great play and gave him some room to work with. You can't take a safety there. You just can't do it. And
that
I
play
know
was from the 8, by the way.
From the 8-yard line. Like, that's totally unacceptable. And to me, when I watched that play in the film, the coach did draw up a play where he had options to, like I said, at least throw it away. To me, Goddard was wide open. But again, he at least was a person you could throw the ball away to. And they were kind of thinking like the knee was a reason why maybe he could have evaded, but he couldn't move around. The problem I have with that is, regardless of the knee, he and no one else could move around because of the snow and ice. So whether the knee was hurting, which I'm sure it was, and limiting him, which I'm sure it was, at that point in that entire second half, no one could move around well and sidestep and juke, right? So even apart from the knee, you can go into that play knowing this weather is awful. I'm probably not going to be able to shake a tackler like I normally would be able to. You had the ball at the 8-yard line. You took a safety, and it was not like a bad snap or anything like that. That's super unacceptable in my opinion. Easy for me to say here, obviously, but the 8-yard line, like, yeah, that's tough stuff. There's certainly stuff to clean up, and that's taking. We talked about this last week. We said the Rams had 9 sacks against the Vikings, and yes, part of that is the Vikings line was trash, and the Rams played well. But another really big piece of that was Sam Darnold holding on the ball far too long and not getting rid of it when he could. And we were kind of saying we we think that the O-line is better, but Hurts has done that this year where he holds on the ball for a very long time. Not every sack was his fault. Certainly not. And there were certainly plays where it does feel like, it makes me think of the film that I watched from the first half of that last playoff game where it's Kellen Moore, come on, draw up some better plays, to get guys open. But he did take a number of sacks because he did hold on to the ball too long. And some of those sacks took points off the board for us, potentially, barring how the kicking situation goes. And one actually put points on the board in a negative way. So that's problematic. And that's been a consistent pattern, I would say. Yeah, I think the stats back that up. That Hurts is one that likes to kind of hold on to the ball a bit longer.
Yeah, no doubt. And the drive at the end of the half that you were speaking of, he took 2 sacks in a row, which put them completely out of field goal range. They were at the 32 on second down before he got sacked, and then they ended up all the way back at the 50.
Yeah. Listen, Hurts, he gutted it out. I don't want us to be like the team is winning despite him. He gutted it out. He had some awesome run plays, such a great quarterback run, such a well drawn up play, and then just perfectly executed there for I think that was the first touchdown of the game, the quarterback run to the right side. But man, gotta take care of the ball, and you gotta get and shout out to Kenneth Gainwell, by the way, who is not in the game very much. But whenever he's in the game, he seems to be, for the most part, doing a really great job. Now, Hurts took that 1 sack where he fumbled the ball. On paper, we didn't have any turnovers, but we certainly came close. And Gainwell jumping on that ball was huge. I don't know, on that play where Hurts took the sack, Becton he's at right guard. There's a guy like right in front of him that's rushing, and for whatever reason, he decides to double team the like nose tackle, defensive tackle, and Gainwell was in pass block on that play, but I just can't imagine a world where your right guard, who isn't really needed anywhere else, is supposed to let the linebacker or defensive lineman rush it and just trust Kenneth Gainwell to take care of it. I just can't imagine that that's how you play that. So I can't come down too hard on Kenneth Gainwell. He was a little slow to get over there, but he does. That was huge when he picked up that fumble. They would have had the ball, I think, at the 50-yard line or on the other side of it.
Yeah, picked up the fumble, and the one drive when Saquon Barkley had to come out. I forget if it was the drive where he had his injury or not, but Gainwell had 2 carries in a row, 1 catch for 10 yards and 1 rush for 10 yards on back-to-back plays. His pass blocking has always been consistent, and I'm really glad you brought up Mekhi Becton, because he was another player in my mind where it was Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
As good as his block was on the first Barkley long touchdown run, where he just put Roseboom on his ass, there were 2 sacks that I would directly attribute to Mekhi Becton. The first one was when Jared Verse is on Lane Johnson. He crashes down. Becton's kind of looking inside towards the center, and Becton got knocked on his ass by Jared Verse while also being blocked by Lane Johnson. And the second one was the one you brought up, where there was a linebacker clearly blitzing, and he decided to crash down on the center, and there ended up being a triple block on the guy that Juergens had, and then this linebacker just has a free shot. Johnson had Verse locked up on the outside, but the linebacker came right by Becton's right shoulder, and he was looking inside on the center. I would put both of those sacks clearly on Mekhi Becton, because Hurts had no time on either of those plays.
Yeah. So, I thought Becton he obviously had some really big blocks in this game, but I thought, generally speaking, he had a bad game. I agree. I
certainly was not his best game.
At least, it's tough when you don't know how it's drawn up in the scheme. But like I said, you can't imagine, especially on that play that you mentioned, the linebacker blitzing. I can't imagine that it's like, let the linebacker in and just let Gainwell pick him up. I can't imagine. Like, triple team the guy that Juergens already has and let the linebacker through. I just can't imagine that's the right play.
And I feel like either Dickerson or Juergens on that play was like pointing over to the right, be like, hey, watch that guy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was that play, and just complete whiff by Becton. Now, he's been great this whole year. We've gotten way more out of him than we thought we would.
Oh, yeah.
But this certainly wasn't his best game. And I think we can just call it like it is. Like I said, he had an absolutely great block that sprung Saquon Barkley for 62 yards.
Oh, he brought the boom on that one, Colin.
Well played, Dan. Well played. He brought
Dude,
the
that was
Rose
sick.
boom.
That's got to feel so good as a lineman when you pancake a guy. But to do it and then to watch your running back run the ball for 60-plus yards for a touchdown, oh, man. Oh, man. That's got to feel amazing. On that play, I liked your breakdown you posted. I saw someone else. It wasn't Orlovsky. It was someone else had mentioned and pointed out in that play that so if the Eagles facing outward, the entire left side of the defensive line was all the like big dudes, the linemen, and for whatever reason, they went super big to that side, and to the side that they checked and ran the ball to, they had like the linebackers set up, and I think the Eagles just saw that and said, interesting. What's the catch here? and then you saw what happens when big offensive linemen go against linebackers. They get put on their keister, Colin. My goodness.
That is what we call a mismatch in the NFL.
That's a mismatch. And by the way, we got to see a nice, fun personality game out of Saquon Barkley, who's a quiet, humble guy. The first touchdown, he looks back. I think he looks back, and when he sees its verse, I think he's like, oh, I'm going to look like a little bit more. That was the verse thing was so clearly on the mind of all of the Eagles between the pregame with Jalen Carter and that run with Barkley. It was so clearly on their minds, and they were so much using that as motivational fuel. So a lot of fun. And then when you watch the replay of that touchdown, he does like a little baby. I think he does a little baby like Cole Madi there after he's in the end zone. He kind of does a little baby one. Don't want to take the fine, but I'm feeling on top of the world. So he goes just a little bit there. And then the other touchdown, watch next year kids everywhere playing football when they're about to score, just smacking their helmet, dude. Just smacking the helmet. He smacked that. And then when it's in the end zone, he does that.
That has been his patented celebration all the way back to Penn State. Just waving his arms over his head, swimming while he's running.
Smacking the helmet, dude. He just was on fire. And then my brother actually pointed this out when they released the like a slow motion replay of that, and they did like the orchestra, NFL films. And if you just watch the play, watch Barkley, but then if you just look at the background and look at the different Eagles. As soon as he hands the ball off, the whole time Hurts is just signaling touchdown, which you can briefly see in the background. And then Landon Dickerson towards the end of the run, you just see him hands up, eyes up. It's so good. It's so beautiful. Gosh, he has been a human highlight reel. If we did top 10 highlights of the Eagles in the 2024-25 season, I think it might just be 10 Saquon Barkley plays, honestly.
It very easily could be. I'm on board with that. I would have to think at least 8 out of the 10 are Saquon Barkley. At least. I think my favorite is the fact that he has 4 runs of over 60 yards for touchdown against the same team in the same season. That's never been done ever. I mean, there's a lot of things that Saquon Barkley that's done this that has never been done ever.
If only he broke the record, Colin.
I know.
If only he broke the record.
I mean, he ran for 460 yards against the Rams this year in 2 games. I don't know what it is about the Rams defense. And every time, at least in this game, they had seven guys at least in the box both times. I think the long one, they had 8. They had 8 in the box. And people were like, well, yeah, as soon as you get past the first level, there's no one there. Well, the ability to get past the first level when they have 8 in the box is pretty damn hard. And that's because Goddard and Calcaterra are good blockers, as well as the offensive line.
Absolutely.
And Saquon Barkley's patience, willing to wait until the hole opens up instead of just trying to shove it in wherever he finds fit. It is the perfect union between great runner and great offensive line.
Colin, everyone on this team, Everyone on this offense is a willing blocker. Every freaking guy on this offense. Smallest guy on the offense, Devontae Smith, what's he doing? He's a willing blocker, dude. You talked about the Kenneth Gainwell, 10-yard bubble pass to him. Who were his lead blockers? It was Jahan Dotson and Devontae Smith, probably the two smallest guys, maybe apart from Kenneth Gainwell, on that offense. When you watch these big runs, you see wide receivers blocking. You see tight ends blocking, and they continue it downfield. It's everyone on this team is bought in, and when Saquon Barkley plays like this, plays his ass off and has these big runs, and they show his effort at the second level, that crap is contagious, man. And they want to watch these replays, and they want to see Saquon Barkley run for a yard, and they want to be the guy that had the last block that helped him seal it. Everyone has bought into the run game on this team, and that's not a given. That's awesome. I think this offense really freaking appreciates what they have, and they love it. They're having an absolute blast. And obviously the offensive line and Saquon Barkley is a freaking match made in heaven, Colin. They're having beautiful. The best time of their lives right now.
They really are. And I hope they can continue it next week. The last point I want to make is a specific play I saw, and it goes along to this point. I think it was the Jalen Hurts touchdown. The two lead blockers were Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and then Jordan Mailata also out there in front, just basically
which was hilarious.
Just holding up the little cornerbacks who are trying to get to him.
He kind of stopped because he was kind of really far down the field. He kind of stopped. He was like, "Oh shoot, he's still coming!" And then he turned around and continued blocking.
Yeah,
it was pretty.
You noticed
funny.
That too, right? He was all the way down the field, and he's just like,
"Oh God,
put my arms out! You can't get past me."
That was hilarious.
That was great. All right. Well, ultimately, even though it was a sweat, the Eagles were able to pull it out in dramatic fashion, 28-22. I don't want to say it, but as soon as Nakua caught that ball on the sideline, I was seeing loss all over. I'm like, they are going to rip our hearts out.
I had the opposite reaction, actually, to the Puka catch, because the whole drive I was like, this is going so bad. And then when they caught that Puka catch, I actually thought it was closer to the end zone. At that point in the game, it was very difficult to see where anyone was on the field because all of the numbers. Well, actually, at that point in the game, they might have. It took them a while. I don't know if you noticed, but at first they weren't using the digital numbers or whatever. Yeah. And then someone must have been like, hey, do you want to do that thing?
They finally transposed the numbers onto the field digitally, which helped out everybody. Yeah,
absolutely. But I was like, okay, if they're going to score on this drive, score quick. Before Puka caught that ball, was like they're draining the clock. And then he caught that field, and I was like, okay, at least if they score, we will likely have some chance, some time left. So obviously I would have been happy for them to shut down that drive immediately, but the Puka catch actually in some ways restored a little hope because at that point I was like, all right, if they score, we'll probably have our timeouts in 40 seconds or so. And then every play, it felt like every play the Rams were catching the ball, they were getting out of bounds. And at one point I'm like, I feel like you guys don't need to stress that much about getting out of bounds right now, but good for us, But yeah, Jalen Carter, 3rd and 2 sack, man. 3rd and 2, huge sack. And then it was a very different play, but it was reminiscent of the Atlanta Falcons shot to Julio Jones in the corner of the end zone that went incomplete. That last pass to Puka Nacua, just in the sense of an incomplete pass out of bounds. Eagles win. Eagles move on. We're going to the conference championship, boys.
But again, I think that's one pass that might have been complete had there not been snow on the ground. But that's neither here nor there. Now, before we get to the preview of the Commanders game, I want to say a couple things. One, thank you to everybody who listens to this podcast. I was at an educational conference with a bunch of turf guys from the Philadelphia area, 2 of which came up to me like, dude, I love the podcast with you and Dan. Listen to every episode. So shout out Charlie and Mike. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate that.
I honestly got a lot of good feedback from just people in general about listening to this. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful awesome. We get to do this.
That means a lot to us.
Yes, absolutely. And to everybody who's watching live tonight, Iceman, thank you for always checking in. People on Twitter, we appreciate it. The second thing is we've been doing this long enough and successful enough that we were recognized and signed to a media conglomerate by the name of Fan First Sports Network. Now, they're a media aggregator. They have a bunch of podcasts and articles from teams across the country, and we have officially joined their network. So starting next week, when this episode is, or when our next episode is, we will officially be broadcasting from the Fan First Sports Network, which you'll be able to find our stuff on there, alongside, again, a bunch of other podcasts from sports across the country. They have articles. They're up and coming, and we're thankful to have been selected out of a massive number of podcasts that are out there. So big news as far as this is concerned. Again, we've said it time and time again. This is just a hobby. We're not making money off of this. We do it for fun. We do it because we love it. But the recognition definitely makes it all worth it. So Dan, thank you for doing this with in the first place, helping make this a reality. And thank you to everybody who listens.
Yeah, man. It's funny. It's funny you say that because every once in a while, when we think of the episode number, we try to think of the episode number ahead of time to come up with our trademark. Today's a Chan Ho Park episode because he wore 61, obviously. And today was one of those days where I was thinking of it, where I was like, wow, look at us. 61 episodes, man. That's pretty freaking awesome. That's pretty cool. So I was also like, my second thought was, 60s. We're about to get some awesome, sweet lineman numbers here coming up here. Some big lineman episodes, which feels apt the way this season has been going. But yeah, man, awesome stuff. And like we talked about earlier, we're also hoping that, this gets us out a little bit more promoted out there into the universe, but also that maybe we can build some, because this is a space where so many different people share their work, their articles, their podcasts. We're hoping this could lead to more opportunities and more episodes where we get to preview with a fan and follower of these other teams, like we did with the Packers with Jackson, because we have a lot of fun doing that too, and we get to kind of know the other teams in a more of a deeper level from someone that's been watching them every minute all season long. So looking forward to those opportunities as well.
Absolutely. And not only opponents of the team that we are talking about that week, but also of our own team, because there are other podcasts of Philadelphia sports on there. So we can collaborate with them and, just kind of meet through the internet and talk what we love to do, and that's sports. So on that note, Washington Commanders are coming into Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday at 3:00. The weatherman in me must state that it will be the first time it's above freezing in about 2 weeks. And I'm going to be down there tailgating, and I can't wait because I'm going to be in shorts. Just kidding. I'm probably not going to be in shorts, but it's going to feel a hell of a lot warmer than it was the last few mornings. It was 4 degrees yesterday and 7 degrees today. I saw a picture from my dad out there in Pittsburgh, where you are, up in the North Hills. It was minus 18. Can you believe that?
18. That sounds like it feels like to me. Coldest temperature ever recorded in Pittsburgh. I figured that out the other day.
What is it?
Minus 22 back in 1994.
Woo!
This past week, man, we were living in the single digits. This is the first time in my life I've been living for like a week's time in single digits. -3, -4. Whenever the Fahrenheit temperature is almost the same number as the Celsius temperature, you're in trouble. I didn't know that was a thing until this week.
That's a great pull. Yeah. Yeah, because the closer to zero it gets, the closer they even out.
Oh, yeah. It got dangerously close to evening out this past week, Colin.
Dan was telling me earlier how he's still dealing with some frozen pipes in his basement, so I'm glad he's got the space heaters running. It has been unbelievably cold, to the point where record-breaking across the country. I mean, for God's sakes, New Orleans got 9 inches of snow this week. That's the first time that's happened since 1895. The entire country has just been going through winter. It's insane. But we'll get it back to the Eagles here. It's actually going to be warm for the first time. So weather will not be an issue this week. So we're going to see full strength against full strength, what's being brought to the table. Now, the Commanders look very, very good. Jaden Daniels is as good as advertised.
Yeah.
I will say that before I watched the film, I felt just as confident as I did last week. This week, maybe not so much. I think part of it is the absence of Nakobe Dean. And the other part of it is Jalen Hurts not being at 100%, nor it seems A.J. Brown, because, again, he wasn't able to get a lot of separation. I guess the other point is thinking back to the last time they played, where Jaden Daniels played against our full defense, other than them being tired, and they scored 35 points. So, Dan, to start, how do you feel about this game as a whole before we get into details?
I feel good about it. I feel optimistic. It's always feels a little bit more unpredictable, in my opinion, when you play a team for the third time, and not just playing a team for the third time, but playing a team with a head coach that has been in our division for a little while now, as Quinn was with the Cowboys in recent years as their defensive coordinator. So we have a different offense this year, but nonetheless, the more a team is familiar with you, the less good it makes me feel, I suppose, is kind of the general route. Now, last game is kind of a weird one because like Hurts did go out, but still, our defense was pretty much in full effect as far as the personnel that are normally out there. So, and who's hotter than Jaden Daniels right now? And the guy that's really come along, it's funny because I remember the last time when we talked about the last Washington game. This is funny, right? I didn't have this all until just now. Just a second.
Oh, trust me.
I thought this is funny. I didn't even realize this till now.
Absolutely.
The last time we talked, about Washington was after the fact when we played when we lost Washington, however long ago it was, and we were talking about De'Ami Brown. Who's this guy? De'Ami Brown had a big catch or two against us. This guy's some schmuck. Well, De'Ami Brown has taken off with Washington. They have developed the chemistry, the quarterback wide receiver chemistry between Daniels and De'Ami Brown. I had it up here. So in the regular season, De'Ami Brown was not even a top 5 receiver for them as far as receiving yards go. He had 1 touchdown. He had 30 catches in 16 games. He had 30 catches for 308 yards, and that's over the span of basically the entire season. Well, in the postseason, he has 11 catches, leads the team in catches and yards. Tied with catches with Scary Terry, but 11 catches, 187 yards, and a touchdown with a long of 42. So this guy has seriously taken off. And that is a little scary because the one thing about this team is their lack of wide receiver talent. We know Terry McLaurin, he's had many big games against the Eagles, but it felt like you survived Terry McLaurin, you're kind of good. And then, apart from that, the other guy that's back that we didn't have to deal with last game is Austin Eckler, who is extremely effective in the pass game. As a matter of fact, when he did play against the Eagles in their first matchup this year, he was their leading receiver in that game. He had 8 catches for 89 yards. So I will say I don't think that this is the same offense. And that's to say, Washington's offense did pretty well against the Eagles last time they played. And they have Eckler back, who they didn't have the last game, and they have this De'Ami Brown connection that has only gotten significantly stronger over their last 4 or 5 games or so. So that's a little scary. And then the Jaden Daniels escapability. I look at how tired the Eagles' defensive line was against the Rams at the end of that game against a quarterback who has no mobility. Dude, Jaden Daniels can scoot around. He's their leading rusher for the season, Jaden Daniels. So this offense, don't get misconstrued. This offense is buzzing around, dude. They found something.
Yeah, they put up 45 points against the Detroit Lions. Now, you have to take that with a caveat that the Detroit Lions defense was absolutely obliterated by injuries. But still, the Detroit Lions were 15-2 going into the playoffs, and they got beaten up for 45 points. This offense is buzzing. And what scares me, and we've talked about it all year, a lot of people have talked about it, that if the game becomes a shootout, are the Eagles built to win that type of game? And if it comes to that, I'm unsure. I think that the Eagles need to dictate this game and make it on their terms. They need to stay true to running the football. They need to run the football effectively, which they did in that first quarter of their last game before Jalen Hurts got hurt. Saquon almost had 100 yards in the first half, and then obviously their entire offensive game plan is thrown out the window because with Kenny Pickett back there, there's one less thing to worry about. Now we have to keep in mind Jalen Hurts is also not at 100% now.
Exactly.
So his ability to run might also play a factor. Mm-hmm. His ability to scramble out of the pocket and find open receivers. His availability to just take drawn up quarterback draws might be limited. And
to this point, did you also see the quote that came out from Washington, D.C.? Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, I saw that. He said, if Jalen Hurts is going to be put in a position to run, we're going to hit him like a running back, and we're not going to let up.
AKA, we're going to try to kill Hurts, which they did last game. They knocked him out of the game last game, which, at that time, I may or may not have felt like it was excessive tackle, unnecessary. Maybe that was the same. This team knows that they won last game against the Eagles in large part because they hurt our starting quarterback. I'm not saying that they're pulling New Orleans Saints and are paying guys to take him out again, but everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. And this is not an uncommon thought, probably. Anytime any quarterback of any team, you get a chance to hit him, you try to smack him as hard as you can. So I don't want to say this is just a complete Washington is a bunch of scumbags thing, because this is a thought that all defenses have probably leading up into any game. You don't think the Bills have this thought going up against Patrick Mahomes? Like, this is not a... But the fact that he's saying it out loud, this is back-to-back games where we have, like, the bulletin board material. Did you notice that? We had Verse in his comments about the fans last week, which makes me feel good about the game. I like being on this side of the bulletin board material for sure. Because clearly, I said it just a little bit ago, the Eagles knew and were fueled by what Verse had to say. Mm-hmm. You don't think they're going to have the same approach to this?
Oh, and the fact that this is out there completely viral now. Everyone in the Eagles locker room has heard this. Mm-hmm. They are going to do their damnedest to inflict the opposite on the defense. They're like, mm-hmm. Oh, you want to hit our guy? Wait until what we do to you. Yeah. And I swear to God, I hope that this is the bulletin board material that, not that you need more motivation to succeed in the playoffs or play your ass off, but just that extra 1% to 2% more to really stick it to them. And again, because they're a division rival who beat you last time, who knocked your quarterback out in the first quarter. I think that this is one thing that we need to pay attention to, is how I think it's going to get chippy.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to get really chippy.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be some personal fouls. There's probably going to be a couple late hits. I just hope it doesn't knock any of our guys out.
I wonder if I know the one cornerback that they acquired this year from the Saints. Help me out. Lattimore.
Yeah.
I don't know what his health is, but he is a guy that comes to mind as being a very chippy, and we saw it in the last game with the matchup between Brown and Lattimore. I look for that to be, if he is healthy and playing, I'd look for that to be a very chippy battle on the outskirts between Lattimore and Brown.
Yeah, I don't see him on the injury report. I know he missed a few games at the end of the season, but he doesn't look to be on the injury report. Frankie Louvu was he's questionable, limited in practice. I would
Yeah,
assume he's going to play, but if he doesn't, that's huge.
They have a few huge names on that injury report. So there's Luvu. Wagner was on the injury report. Now they might just not be. He may not be participating in practice because he's 34-year-old Wagner. Like, let's just get him healthy. He knows how to play football. One of the higher IQ guys. But also their defensive tackle, who I don't think he may have played against the Lions, but Payne. He might be
Payne.
He might be the best guy on that defensive line. He's been battling an injury. So there's some significant names on that injury report, a lot of which are linebackers and defensive line. That would be huge if those guys either don't play or just aren't 100%. I mean, they aren't 100% for sure if they're on the injury report not practicing. But
yeah, I'm looking at the injury report, at least on ESPN. Wagner and Daron Payne did not practice yesterday. There was no update today, so it leads me to believe that they were still not playing. Again, Luvu is questionable, and their starting guard, Sam Cosmi, is out for this game after getting injured in the Lions game. So another thing to keep in mind.
And Quinyon is looking for the injury report on our side of things. I think Quinyon was back at practice.
Yeah, Hurts and Quinyon were both full participants today,
Huge.
so that is big. Jalen Hurts, please stay healthy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be so nervous. I'm gonna be in the tailgate lots. You know what? I'm not gonna be nervous. I'm gonna be down there in the tailgate lots. I'm not even gonna. Dan, I just had a realization.
What's that?
It's making me afraid. The last time I was down at the link was week 2 against the Falcons, which is the only
Might have
game.
To stay home, Colin.
Only game they lost at home.
You have to do your part.
Dude, I don't wanna. I want to go down to the tailgate lots. Is me going to the tailgate, is that going to make them lose?
That's the question that you have to answer for yourself, Colin.
Okay, well, I'll make that determination on Sunday morning, I guess. I'll be a game time decision.
Just as far as the team defense stats go for Washington, they haven't been terribly good against the run this year. I have the total yards pulled up here, and I have them as bottom. They're in the bottom 5 for total rush yards allowed. As far as touchdowns allowed, they're more in the middle of the pack. But they've let up quite a few 20-plus yard runs. So and this is regular season numbers here, but they've let up 14 20-plus yard runs, and that's, again, kind of in that bottom probably 6 or 7 teams. So the big play ability is definitely there for the Eagles. They haven't let up a ton of 40-plus yard runs, but how many times does Barkley get to 20 yards and then he's special and can bust it for the long touchdown run? He did it against Washington last time they played. And then as far as their pass defense goes, this is just so surprising to me because when I look at the roster, I don't feel like Washington has a ton of talent in the secondary, but they've let up 4th best in receiving yards. I guess I could receiving yards, pass yards, same deal here. But yeah, 4th best as far as passing yards allowed, meaning they have not let up a whole lot of pass yards, which is just so surprising to me because, like I said, I feel like on paper their secondary is not too spectacular, but they've been actually like pretty decent against the pass game. So I do think, having said that, I don't know that we can survive another game with A.J. Brown having 1 or 2 catches for less than 20 yards. I do think that A.J. Brown can and needs to have an impactful game in this one. I just can't believe that we can simply run the ball effectively with no kind of deep threat or no big plays to A.J. Brown. He's had, what do you have, 1 catch in the first playoff game and then 2 in this last one?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I just
It was
can't.
definitely 1 for 10 yards against the Packers. I know that for a
I
fact.
want to say it was like 2 for 14 or something like that.
Yep,
in this
you were
last
exactly
game.
right. So yeah, he's had 3 catches for 24 yards in the playoffs.
And mind you, he's getting targets. This last game especially, I think he had like 8 targets or something like that.
7. He had 7 targets.
So I do think we don't know if something's going on with A.J. Brown or not, because we've never really seen this before from A.J. Brown, where he has back-to-back bad games, you could argue, and drops the ball. It's tough to find the stat of drops for whatever reason, but I feel like he's had more drops in the playoffs than he did all season long, mostly because he did not drop the ball at all season long. So, yeah, and the 2 plays that come to mind, this last one was obviously the deep pass. Listen, weather conditions and all, he's got to catch that ball. He actually caught the ball, and then when he went to kind of like tuck it in or bring it in, he dropped it. And then there was another one kind of over the middle of the field where I don't think it was an official drop, but it was a catch we see all year. He catches the ball over the middle of the field a lot. He does that slant route a lot, and he was very, very nervous about the safety coming down and just kind of like let it go and wasn't willing to sell out for it. But we're going to need more production out of A.J. Brown, and I think it's fair to say we're probably going to need at least better production out of Jalen Hurts. If even it's just not taking that many sacks. Now, we discussed, not all of them were his fault, but I think it's fair to say at minimum 3, just as a random number, at minimum 3 of them, if not a lot more, he's got to have a check that he's got to get rid of the ball and not take a sack. So the pass game, I think, does need to improve somewhat significantly to win this game, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that play up to AJ, because that was another thing I noticed last week, was that Jalen Hurts put both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in harm's way with 2 late throws. The one to A.J. Brown was in the middle of 3 wide receivers across the middle of the field. I think A.J. could have sold out a little bit more, absolutely. But the deep ball to Devontae Smith that ended up in a personal foul, I was watching that play. He waited until Devontae Smith broke and was open.
Mm-hmm.
If he had thrown that ball right when he was getting ready to break, he would have been able to catch that ball with at least 5-yard separation. But that half second allowed the defender from the other side to come in and just lay a lick on him.
I was so angry at that play.
I
that
was
was
too.
Such a headshot. That was such a dirty, I'm just trying to kill this guy.
Yeah. And
I was dirty hit.
I was mortified that Devontae Smith was going to be concussed on that play and not be able to get up.
And that's the kind of
thing I'm worried about this weekend. And Jalen Hurts cannot take a sack, and he cannot put his wide receivers in harm's way, because they need everybody healthy to win this game. I don't think there is any position on the field that they can afford an injury at. Maybe sans cornerback, because Isaiah Rodgers is still playing pretty well. Just hopefully Quignon's healthy. Cooper DeJean's been playing decent, but he needs to step up too. All 3 corners need to step up.
The D-line is huge in this game, man. The leading rusher for the team is Daniels. And the last time we played, we saw, I think it was the game before. So the last time the Eagles played Washington, it was either the game before that or maybe it was a couple games before that, they played Baltimore. And we saw a defensive line be absolutely outstanding against Lamar Jackson. Great pressure, but great job not over pursuing and not allowing Lamar to easily squeak through or get outside and run it for 10, 20 yards. And then that last game against Washington, the defensive line, to me, looked very undisciplined. They didn't have the same containment. They over pursued and gave Daniels a lot of really easy run plays. We got to be better than that this game. We have to show patience. We have to show desire to get to the quarterback, but not at the cost of letting him run the ball easily for a first down. So we have to do that. And what does Washington love to do this year, Colin? That offense loves to stay on the field. And what does that look like? It looks like them going it for it on 4th down. So maybe more than any other team. If it's 4th and 1 or 2, they go for it. They go for it. Those are huge turning points in the game. We saw it against Lions. We've seen all year long. This team loves to go for it. Huge turning points in the game. Man, we got to stop them when they try to go for it on 4th down. That is, to me, that's like such a big turning point in this game, is the turnover on downs. If we're going to win this game, we're going to need at least one, if not two, of those turnover on downs, because they're going to get in positions where they go for it on 4th, and we have to stop them there. They don't turn the ball over a ton. For a rookie quarterback, it does a pretty good job at not turning the ball over, but they will go for it on 4th down. We got to stop them.
Yeah, and I saw a stat earlier. In the first game they played, I believe they blitzed Jaden Daniels 11%, and his completion percentage, it was either completion percentage or QBR, was in the 30s. And then in the second game, they blitzed him 33%. And I think it was on those plays, his QBR was in the 80s, which, being over aggressive, over pursuing, losing contain, which tends to happen when you're blitzing, that led to some problems for the Eagles. So I think Vic Fangio's probably going to see that was not the best way to attack him. And hopefully they try to just keep contained with 4, keep him in the pocket, try to make him beat them with his arms. The other thing is something the Eagles have not done the last 2 games that they have done all season. And that's be able to salt the clock away with the end of the game on the line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Eagles had 4 minutes left in the game and then went 3 and out, allowing the Rams to go back down the field and almost win the game. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, they had that same opportunity against the Packers and weren't able to do so. Is that correct?
I don't remember off the top of my head there, Colin.
It's been a couple weeks, but something's telling me that they've had an opportunity on both occasions to just salt the clock away, and they weren't able to do so.
That's kind of, to me, a big hit on the pass game, because in those situations the defense is selling completely out for the run. That's a lot. That's tough to do when everyone knows it's a run play and the defense is completely selling out because they got nothing to lose. And I do think we've seen games this year where they've been good at that, like unbelievably good at that situation. Actually, it makes me think of like the Steelers game where they had the ball for, I think they had the ball for like 11 minutes.
Yes,
and that was a lot of running. But when you have no real threat, now this last game, obviously the weather had a huge role in that, but when you're not as dynamic on offense, it's probably, those situations become a bit harder. But you make a good point. This is a team you don't want to give that offense second, third chances to, for sure.
Well, the reason I'm saying this is because Jaden Daniels has proven that he is good in clutch time on the last drives of games. I mean, to the point where I think they had 5 or 6 touchdown come from behind wins on the last drive of the game. And I did look it up in the Packers game. They had 5 minutes left. They were only able to muster 6 plays for 30 yards and a field goal, taking 1:46 off the clock. Where I was one of those where, like, all right, 5 minutes left. Let's just crank it out here. Let's keep them from getting back on the field. Again, it didn't end up hurting them because Jordan Love threw an interception on the succeeding drive. But please, this is one thing the Eagles cannot do, is give the ball back to Jaden Daniels with, less than 3 minutes left on the clock. That's what makes me nervous, especially seeing what the Eagles did in the last 4 minutes against the Rams.
Yeah.
That's one thing that scares me.
Daniels is chasing history here. No rookie quarterback has ever taken his team to the Super Bowl.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, it's wild, but it's like, yeah,
you also believe
that makes sense, because usually the best quarterbacks go to really crappy teams. And also being a quarterback and being a rookie quarterback, like, it's so hard. You have so much to learn, so much information coming your way. So usually it takes some time to kind of develop all of that, even just like the mental side of the game. Goes to show how amazing he's been. He's been really, really good.
This is looking beyond this year, but I hope they beat the Commanders because they're only going to get better having this good of a quarterback on a rookie deal for the next 4 years, which is a little bit scary as an Eagles fan, having to see this team, which has been borderline mediocre for the last 20 years. I mean, the win against the Bucks was their first playoff win in 15 years or so. So, yeah, the Eagles have a problem in the Commanders for a little while because they have found a great quarterback. I'm just hoping they can beat him this year because I think overall they still have the better team. If they play the game to their biggest ability, and Jalen Hurts he doesn't need to be a world beater. He just needs to be able to do enough from the passing game to open it up on the run side. I think we can win this game.
I think we can win this game, Colin. What do you think the score is going to be?
I'm saying 23-19 Eagles, and it's going to be another sweat.
Yeah, about 2 missed extra points by Jake Elliott this last game. That was stressful. Didn't need to be that stressful at the end of the game.
Nope.
In fact, he made some huge kicks in the snow too, and then he just couldn't hit a freaking extra point.
Why does he make the hard ones and miss the easy ones?
He just needs to close his eyes when he's on the sideline. Okay, the entire game, just close his eyes. And his ears, actually. He just needs to go. You remember that show in like the 90s where it was some kind of game show and they'd go into like a telephone booth and like money be flying around and they had to answer like trivia questions or something like that? The host was this like super genius guy who had no personality. He was just super bland. If anyone hears this and knows what show I'm talking about and describing poorly.
Is it Ben Stein? Win Ben Stein's mind?
Yeah, Ben. I'm pretty sure that's Ben Stein. Yeah. Yeah, Ben Stein. Didn't you go in like a phone booth and you couldn't hear anything, and then you had to answer the same questions or something like that? Whatever it is, they just need to do that with Jake Elliott, and then lie to him whenever it's an extra point and tell him it's a field goal, so that it's not even in his head. Because you have to imagine at this point in time, extra points are like so in his head, and he's hooking them all the same way, right? Just like keeps hooking them left.
Yep.
Listen, Jake, I promise it's a field goal. We need these 3 points really bad. Wink, wink. Don't look at the scoreboard, and then we'll be good to go if we can pull that off. That's next level coaching. But as far as the score of this game, I think the Eagles can score a lot of points. And frankly, I think to win this game, they're going to need to have a really strong offensive game. Not that they won't have a good defensive game, but we're just trying to get that complimentary football here, Colin. I am going to say Eagles 31, Washington 23.
Okay. So
let's see.
You have them covering the spread. I do not. They have covered and or tied the spread the earlier 2 games.
All right.
Spread's -6. I haven't bet on it. I might. I don't know. I'll probably pull the trigger when I'm down in the tailgate lots because I'm still going. I don't care. You don't often get to go to a playoff tailgate. And I have the feeling it is my notion that me being in the building is not a jinx. It's not going to happen.
Just trust your gut.
I trust my gut. I trust my family. I trust my passion in the Eagles. We're going to be just fine. This team has showed they can win even when the odds are stacked against them. The 3 losses they've had have been really bad situations. I guess other than the Falcons game, that was just a bad game. But Bucks lost, Commanders lost. Those were 2 completely bad situations for the Eagles, where the other 15 wins that they've had this year, when they have their full strength and they play the game they know how to, they've won against really good teams, and I think they're going to do it again.
One more big win here.
One more
there.
One more.
I'd love to dance.
Oh, I would love to.
Let's get there.
Real quick before we leave, what's your take on Bills Chiefs?
I said this at the start of the playoffs. I don't have a good explanation for it, but it feels like the Bills have something. I don't know why. I have a weird feeling. The stats don't really back it up. The Chiefs always win. Obviously, the Ravens should have won last game, from a roster standpoint, right? But I don't know, man. It feels like the Bills have something, and I feel like they're on a run right now. They have a quarterback who has been through a lot of difficult recent games that have inspired him to take it to the next level. And I just don't think he's going to let that team lose. I think they have something special going on. Got a weird feeling about the Bills. I think they're going to win.
I couldn't agree more. Josh Allen is a man on a mission. And
man on a mission.
I'm certainly rooting for the Bills because I don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again, whether it's against us or not. I don't want to see them in the Super Bowl.
You don't want a rematch?
No. I'd rather go against Bills Mafia because those two fan bases down in New Orleans would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, so. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Again, thank you to everyone who has listened to this. If you've made it through this almost 90-minute podcast, you're a legend. We appreciate you. Dan, I love you, brother. This has been fun, and I'm hoping we can throw one more victory pod on next week. Maybe not just one, maybe two, but at least one more after we witness what we see on Sunday afternoon.
Let's get it in some final words here, just as inspiration for all of us. Compete to raise the level of excellence in your life, to learn and grow in order to raise it in others. Go Birds.
Thank you, Jim Murphy. And on the words of that, we will talk to you guys next week. Go Birds.
Go Birds!
Let's go. Later.